Well, hello, friend. Glad you stopped by. My name is Jeff Lysyczyn, and I've worked in the music business for over 25 years. Most of that time as an artist manager, and more recently as an instructor in the College of Entertainment and Music Business at Nashville's Belmont University. Welcome to episode 2 of my vlog, Music Business After Dark. This is my chance to answer questions that I've been asked by aspiring artists over the years. In episode 1, I talked about managers and why it's so hard to get one early on in your career. And tonight, I want to talk about another topic that I get asked about a lot: opening slots on tours. Now, I meet with a lot of young artists, and I always ask them what they think is important, what they think, if they were to get a manager, they'd like for that manager to focus on. Almost always, opening slots on tours is in the top 2 or 3 answers. I remember a conversation I had a few years ago with a member of a band from Texas. Now, they had built a really nice career touring and recording, all within the confines of the state of Texas. And they'd seen their growth flatten off, so they were exploring ways that they could get over that hump. And I'll never forget, he said to me, "Man, if we could just get on tour with a mainstream country artist, I know we could grow our fan base outside of Texas." Now, I probably get a dozen or more emails every year from young artists or people that represent them inquiring about opening for my clients. So this is clearly a topic on many young artists' minds. There are a lot of great stories about opening acts. There's the famous mismatch of Jimi Hendrix opening for the bubblegum pop TV band The Monkees. Then there are those stories about artists that get opening slots and blow the headliner off the stage. Sometimes they even get kicked off the tour for it. The first ones that come to mind are Van Halen and Kiss. They were both invited to open for the legendary band Black Sabbath in the 70s when they were both fledgling bands, both of them famously making it hard for Ozzy Osbourne and crew to follow them. You see, opening acts are also referred to sometimes as the warm-up band. And they're designed to entertain the big band's fans as they're filing into the hall and get them hyped up to see that headliner show. Not to scorch the earth and make that headline band feel less than or look less than. There are a couple great stories about Taylor Swift. See, early on in her career, she was invited out on tour by the super country group Rascal Flatts. And then later on, when Taylor's career skyrocketed, she returned the favor and had Rascal Flatts out on tour with her. Ed Sheeran, his career blew up when Taylor took him out on the road when he was still relatively unknown. So it stands to reason that new artists feel like getting an opening slot on a big tour would be a great way to advance their career and to help them gain lots of new fans. So why is it so hard to get these opening slots? Let's peel that onion back a little bit. First, I think it's important to understand who the players are when choosing opening acts for a tour. Of course, the headline act, they have to approve of who shares the stage with them, of course. Then there's that headline act's manager, who's involved in every aspect of their career. So of course, they have a voice in the decision. Next is the booking agent. That headliner's booking agent is the one that plots the tour, puts all the pieces together. So of course, their opinion matters. Now, because tours are such an important way to promote records, oftentimes the headliner's record company will have a seat at the table. And last but not least, the concert promoter. Now, among the many things that concert promoters do, they put up the money for tours. And they stand to lose a lot of it if the tour fails. No secret why their opinion matters when it comes to choosing an opening act. Well, now that we know the who, let's talk about the whys. When you've gone to a concert and seen that opening act wander out on the stage and begin to play, have you ever really stopped to think about why they were chosen to be there? It's easy to think, oh, well, the headliner likes their music and they wanted to give them a shot. And sometimes when the headliner is huge, that's enough to get it done. But more often, there's a lot more that goes into that decision about who gets to open on those tours. I remember a couple of years ago, a young client of mine called me. He'd been over in the studio at his record company, and one of the bigger acts on the label happened to be in the building. And they met and they chatted, and the bigger act asked him to play a few songs. And after he played this other act a few songs, he turned to his tour manager, who happened to be with him, and said, "Man, this guy's great. We got to take him on tour with us this fall." Well, even my young artist, whose first album hadn't even been released yet and had never been on a tour, he was smart enough to know that that other artist was paying him a really nice compliment, but the odds of actually getting out on that tour were pretty slim. Sure enough, a few days later, that other artist, that bigger artist's agent, called me and invited my client out on the tour. But even that situation felt like there was probably some political motivation. You see, that bigger artist was getting ready to drop a new album, and he was smart enough to know that the label would probably appreciate his taking that baby band out and giving them a leg up. I scratch your back, you scratch my back, right? After all, we call it the music business. And everybody involved in a tour has the common goal of selling out every show on that tour. In those instances where the headliner is huge and those sellouts are virtually a guarantee, well, then that headliner does have the luxury of choosing openers based on his or her personal taste. For most tours, however, openers may be chosen more for their ability to bring in an additional audience and sell more tickets. When you think about it, that narrows the playing field considerably. Well, let's go back to the players involved for just a second and talk about their individual motivation. The headliner's manager may represent a smaller act that she's trying to grow. Well, that manager may lobby to get that act on the tour. The booking agent may be in a similar situation. They may represent a younger act and want to help that act out by getting them on this tour. The concert promoter. They may be trying to land another tour with a different headliner, so they may need to do a favor for that headliner's manager or agent and get one of their baby acts on this tour. Record company, you guessed it, same thing. And then there's the issue of how finances work for opening acts. On most tours, the budget available to pay opening acts is often less than it would cost that act to embark on that tour. Now, most independent artists probably can't afford to go out there and work on a tour for a couple $100 a night because they've got to pay a band, they've got to rent a van and a trailer, put gas in that van, they got to feed everybody, they got to book hotel rooms. Heck, on a lot of tours, opening acts actually have to pay for the privilege of playing for that headliner's audience. That's called a buy-on. And it's a pretty controversial topic in the music business. If you Google that term, you can read a lot of articles about it. Well, in those situations, it's almost always a record company that pays the expenses and pays that buy-on to get their young act onto the tour to get them that exposure. And when a record company picks up the tab like that, that's called tour support, and that happens a lot too. And I bet you never thought about how complicated choosing opening acts can be, did you? But listen, you gotta keep hustling. As the famous hockey player Wayne Gretzky once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But here's my advice to you for this vlog when it comes to these opening slots. Focus on pitching shows that you might actually have a shot at. Here's a good example. If your band can draw 100 fans in your hometown, well, look around and find out who the buyer is for clubs in your area that bring in some national talent. Pitch them. Look, you probably will still work for cheap or for free, but you could actually help them sell that show out, and in turn, you'll get to play in front of that headliner's audience and gain a bunch of new fans. Well, that's all for tonight. Be sure and subscribe to this channel and like this video. As always, my email address and LinkedIn profile are in the description. Drop me an email. Let me know what topics you'd like for me to cover in future videos. Drop a comment below if you've had an experience being an opening act or getting shot down while pitching yourself as an opening act. I'm sure that your experiences could help others that are in the same position. Well, hey, cool cats. Until we meet again, cheers.